I want to talk in this opening segment about the American dream. It seems like an appropriate topic. A little later on the podcast, Debbie and I are going to have a conversation with Mayra Flores, who is the first, Mexico-born U.S. Congresswoman and a Republican. So this is all great stuff. And she's in a tight race. She's going to be running in a fairly heavy Biden plus district in South Texas. And so excited to hear from Mayra. But she represents the American dream as a legal immigrant like me. And so against this backdrop, I see this article just out in the New York Times. It's about the American dream. It's called How a Storied Phrase Became a Partisan Battleground. The subtitle is that a touchstone of political and social discourse, the nearly 100-year-old phrase, the American dream, is being repurposed. Critics say distorted, particularly by Republicans of color. Now, this is significant. What's the Times saying? They're saying that the American dream as a phrase and as an idea is being politically weaponized. And I want to say, yes, it is. And that's a very good thing. Why? Because now there's only one of the two political parties that even aspires to the American dream, that defends the American dream and the ideas behind that dream. And it's particularly poignant and appropriate that not just Republicans, but Republicans of color, as the Times calls us, become champions of this dream. Why? Because we have seen this dream not just in theory. In other words, there's a kind of a knowledge of the American dream, but we have experienced the American dream play out in our life. And moreover, having been raised in other cultures, this is true of Debbie in her younger years, and me until the age of 17, and Mayra. I think Mayra came to America, I read, at the age of 6. So all of us have at least a childhood memory of growing up in a different culture and what the rest of the world is like. And so for us, the uniqueness of the American dream stands out. Now, this article is very upset. It tries to make 2 points about the American dream. The first one is that the original American dream was optimistic. And today's the use of the American dream politically today, the writer, who's Jasmine Ulloa, says is very pessimistic and dark. Republicans are using the concept of a kind of disappearing or vanishing American dream. And I think this is true, but actually accurate, a reflection of our situation. So if you look at America in 1910 or 1920, even really in the aftermath of the Depression, because the Depression was a monumentally destructive event, but by and large, the promise of America was very strong. And there was a recognition that America would come out of this Depression and come out strong. So, yeah, there was an optimistic time in America, the early part of the 20th century, all the way through the 50s and 60s. But today, large swaths of our population are not experiencing that experience of opportunity and upward mobility. And this is really what immigrants aspire to. This is what they come here for. And so think of somebody like Mayra or like Debbie looking at the way in which their own countries have been rife with corruption, or they've gone downhill, or they have never figured out how to create mass prosperity. Or even if you do have a measure of prosperity, you don't have your rights, you don't have freedom. Let's remember, we talk about the American dream. This is not merely a dream of economic advancement. You could be raised in China. You could have economic advancement. Your grandparents used to go down to the beach to wash their clothes. You now have washing machines and nice cars. Maybe you're even a millionaire. But on the other hand, you have no rights of free speech, no rights of political participation. So in other words, you remain in many respects a slave of the government. Now, the point is that the American dream is under attack in the United States on both fronts. It's under attack in the realm of economic opportunity. There's literally an unwinding of the American economy being done under Biden, one destructive policy after another. Hispanics in particular have basically seen their upward mobility ground to a halt. Their money, the value of their money dissolved by inflation, higher prices that have canceled out any gains that they've recently made. So they have seen the standstill. And to the degree that you see the American dream as an effort to move up in life, you see that the Democrats are pulling us down. But then second, and even worse, much more dangerous, the wholesale assault on our basic rights. We live today in a country that does not have our proper and full free speech rights. We don't have even our normal Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable search and seizure. Look at the Mar-a-Lago raid. I'll talk about that later in the podcast. The right to equal treatment under the law, that's become a complete joke. The agencies of our government have become corrupted from the top, I would say all the way down. So no wonder we're weaponizing the American dream. Why? Because the American dream is no longer the shared aspiration of both political parties. Now it's the Republicans who are the defenders of that dream, and the Democrats are the ones who are pulling it down.